On September 3rd, 2023, Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal was completed in 8 minutes and 17 seconds. But what's happening in the Ranger ship? What happened to Florana? How did he spawn here? And why does he only play half the levels? All these questions and more will be answered in this video. The first thing you need to know about the run is the category. There are two NG Plus categories on the main leaderboard, NG Plus and NG Plus no QE. My 8-minute run falls under the NG Plus category, which uses QE. But what is QE? It stands for Quit Exploit, and it has caused a huge number of glitches in the PS3 port of the game. You see, there's a whole bunch of old strange glitch videos featuring items like Paradox ERR and the Bomb Glove. When these videos came out, nobody knew what caused it, but in 2018, a fellow speedrunner by the name of Tweezle started getting similar glitches. Now that we had close contact with someone with the glitch, we could start to investigate. And investigate we did.
I'd like to know what happens if I use this as a hypershot. I got it!
After countless hours of testing between Tweezle, Izaki, Does This Username, and others, they found that if you use the Quit Game button in the options menu on a specific file, then load back into the game and trigger an autosave, the vendor will have a bunch of garbage, and a gadget that changes depending on which planet you're on. The earliest QE run, called Save Corruption at the time, was performed by Wiffle in September of 2018, and it used QE to quote-unquote corrupt the item list in the vendor. This route managed to place the gravity boots in the vendor on Hollow Star Studios, allowing you to skip the left side of Dax and the entirety of both Obani Gemini and Blackwater City, saving about 4 minutes. But by the end of January 2019, we had a file which put the master plan in the vendor alongside the gravity boots. This was revolutionary. Instead of just skipping 2.5 planets, you got to pick up an item which can be used to unlock one of the last 5 levels in the game, saving another 10 minutes to make the category 14 minutes shorter than NG Plus no QE. Now, instead of getting the gravity boots, top runners get the tier guys, which can be used to gain height infinitely, saving time in 2 places. The only drawback is that it's insanely difficult, so difficult that only 5 people have completed runs in this way.
Why is the destroyer up? Why is the destroyer up?
Alright, there's just one more thing before I let the run play out. In Ratchet & Clank games, particularly on the PS3 port of the original trilogy, there are what we call file manipulations. These are things which you do in one run, which affect the way you do the next run after you reset. These include simple things like the position of the cursor in a menu, but it also includes the health of certain bosses. These games have a tuning system which decreases the health of bosses if you die to it repeatedly. This reduced health carries between files on certain bosses, so if you die on the Dr. Nefarious fight a bunch of times before you start runs, he'll have less health in runs, allowing you to kill him faster. These manipulations last until you close the game, and are allowed for NG Plus runs. Now, let's get into the run itself.
Stuhl bleiben, Leute. Die Tyrannos könnten hier überall stecken.
The Velden load screen looks weird because I'm using a tool called Rackman to reset faster. Rackman is a community-made tool that basically gives you all the quality of life that PC speedruns have. You get practice tools to use outside of runs, faster resets, an input display, and an auto splitter. The charge boots are very broken. They get you up to the speed cap of the game very quickly, and you can carry most of that speed into other moves in a wide variety of ways. This tech is collectively known as neutral tech, due to how you have to hold the left analog stick neutral for most of it to work. There are neutral long jumps, side flips, double jumps, and turret proxies. With the charge boots, I try to make heavy use of buffered R1 inputs, where I press R1 slightly before I want to charge, or as I enter a cutscene, then try to time the second R1 input right when I want to charge. I messed it up a couple of times in this run, losing about a second. I turn to the left here to go to the hidden dropship trigger and pull out the suck cannon. For whatever reason, Insomniac made a giant box around the second area of Velden, and if you touch it, you'll get warped to the Ranger mission. Luckily, the box extends under the death plane, which allows me to die as I enter the dropship to set up Quark Warp, a glitch which skips all of Florana. There are two ways to set up Quark Warp. You can die in the dropship, or you can kill the first 3 green gunners in the mission, and then quickly finish the level from there. The dropship death method is the fastest, but it's harder and it doesn't always work even if you do it correctly. Quark Warp only works on the PS3 version in the game, and in either the German or Spanish language, so I chose German for this run. Now it's time for free fall skip. If you hold strafe as Ratchet jumps out of the Ranger ship, he'll do a slightly weird jump. If you hold strafe, then release it right after Ratchet jumps, he will rub against the Ranger ship, allowing you to charge off of it. Now, if you instantly cancel the charge using the suck cannon, you can stay inside the ship with full control over Ratchet. For some reason, this is what happens if you do it with the Infernox armor or any skin equipped. This is why I use the Aegis Mark V armor. The triangle button is inactive here, so I have to go into the weapons menu to equip the plasma whip. From inside the ship, I can get onto the seat on the left side, then double jump high enough to land on top of the roof of the ship. I can just barely get a charge off of the roof, and do a whip jump to just barely clear the freefall trigger, allowing me to fall directly onto the ending cutscene, saving 8 seconds over doing the freefall normally. On Florana, I hit Quark Warp, saving about 20 seconds over playing Florana quickly. We don't know why it works on a technical level, we just know what to do on Velden to make it happen. Ideally, the Quark fight only takes one shot of the Rhino V4, but more often than not, it needs a little help doing the last bit of damage, so I quickly swapped to the splitter rifle to finish him off. I lost almost a second to my gold because I tried to shoot it a little bit too soon, so my sniper rifle didn't shoot until half a second later when I realized I had to press circle again. On the Phoenix, we only have 2 quick tasks. First, put Quark in his cage. Then, go to the bridge to get the Marcadia coordinates. The fastest way to reach the bridge is by camera clipping through this wall, jumping across the decorations, then charging through this texture to reach the cutscene from out of bounds. The camera in this game is a physical object, meaning it has the ability to move Ratchet if it comes into contact with him. Luckily for us, it's very straightforward to make this happen. The L1 button resets the camera to be behind Ratchet when he's on the ground, but if there's a wall in the way, the camera quickly passes through Ratchet to be in front of him instead. During this time, if you have enough speed, you can wrench swing through the wall. In practice, this sequence requires a very quick set of inputs, which you can see in the input display in the bottom left. Normally, when you get coordinates, the game sets your checkpoint to wherever you were when you got them. This doesn't happen on the Phoenix, so we're free to death warp straight back to the ship. These green tubes make Ratchet do a lava bounce, but if you mash R1, you can cancel the bounce animation with the charge boots, which makes you bounce again immediately after. The game kills Ratchet if he takes damage from them 4 times in quick succession. Marcadia is the hardest segment in the run. The majority of runs that get here die here. It starts with a turret proxy into a long jump to reach the end of the first area. Next, I begin to set up Early Laser Defense Facility, or ELDF for short. In order to set up the trick, I need to set up a box yeet and set my checkpoint inside the Ranger ship. Before I can do that though, I need to break this crate, kill the enemies, and die. If I don't break the crate, the box will be angled 90 degrees to the right of what I need it to be. Now I use the suck cannon on the crate, and swap weapons before it becomes suck cannon ammo. The crate knows it's getting sucked up, but it can only move towards Ratchet while Ratchet is holding the suck cannon. After I die, the box will still remember that it's being sucked up. While setting my checkpoint in the Ranger ship, I take the opportunity to buy the Tier guys and the Master Plan. Buying the Master Plan can crash your game, but if you have a weapon out and press X to fly to a new destination, it will not crash. Now, the Ranger ship is blocking the fence where I did the first proxy, so I have to do this slightly different proxy to get back to the crate to set up the box yeet. For this to work, I need to double jump and then double tap triangle such that Ratchet holds the suck cannon for exactly 4 frames. If I hold it for any more or any less frames, the box will be in a different shape, which won't launch me the way I want it to. Now with the crate set up, I go into lock strafe mode and line up Ratchet. Then double jump and pull out the suck cannon with a specific timing, causing the box to launch Ratchet when it collides with him. If you touch a steep slope while you still have momentum from the box, it will launch you again, which is what I do on this building here. I spam glide as soon as I bounce to get as much height as possible, and turn the camera down so I can do refractor up warp. On Marcadia, there are 3 areas of the map. The main area, the Ranger mission area, and the Laser Defense Facility. They're all on the same map, but very far apart, and only the collision from one area is loaded at a time. The items always exist though. Luckily, the refractor item does not check Ratchet's height, so it can be picked up from very far below as long as the item's model is loaded. The refractor first loads in when the camera is about 64 units below it, and the box yeet barely gives enough height when you put the camera as high as possible in lock strafe. Once you collect the refractor, it warps you up to its location, and this is where the real magic happens. You see, when your checkpoint is set inside the Ranger ship, you will respawn in the Ranger ship regardless of where it is. For example, if you travel between the 2 Ranger ship locations in the main area of the level, Ratchet can get stuck inside of it after respawning. Since the refractor warped you up to the Laser Defense Facility, that Ranger ship is loaded, and if you press triangle to exit the ship after you respawn, you'll be inside the Laser Defense Facility. LDF itself is fairly straightforward, although it's still quite difficult. This first camera clip is deceptively difficult, as you have to turn the camera in first person. After the second camera clip, I do an insta-whip, then do 3 tier flips to reach the final room with Al. Tier flips, especially without quick select pause, are the hardest movement tech in the game. I mean, just look at the input display while I do it. The button combinations are crazy. This, combined with the extreme precision of ELDF, are the reasons why Marcadia is such a tough beast. With VidComic 1 and both of the QE items in hand, I'm free to take the teleporter and the Ranger ship and leave Marcadia. The second Phoenix visit is deceptively complicated. It all looks so normal, but to be honest, it's a huge stroke of luck that we spawn in the lounge with VidComic 5. Both of the items we bought in the vendor earlier changed the way the Phoenix works. If I had only bought the tier guys, I would have spawned at the bridge where Quark gives you the coordinates for Aquatos. Luckily, the game prioritizes the master plan, which puts Quark's memorial up. So although we have the tier guys, Quark can't give us the Aquatos coordinates because his memorial is in the way. Unfortunately, we weren't so lucky with the first vidcomic, as the game plays a cutscene and forces you to load into the level right away. In challenge mode, you can skip the vidcomics, so we just exit the vidcomic and use the menu to skip it. After skipping vidcomic 1, we have a problem. The game only lets you skip vidcomics in order, so you normally need to collect all 5. Luckily, there is one oversight in the menu that lets us bypass the restriction. If you press X and square at the exact same time, you'll open the cheat menu, which closes the vidcomic menu. But when you go back into the vidcomic menu, the cursor will be on top of vidcomic 5 with the skip menu open, allowing you to skip vidcomic 5 without having vidcomics 2 through 4. Skipping vidcomic 5 gives us the coordinates to Quark's hideout, so we head back to our ship to go there. Quark's hideout is a classic example of Ratchet & Clank level design. The end is near the beginning, we abuse out-of-bounds textures being solid to reach the end in record time, and we get to go back exactly the way we came. The only issue is the invisible wall here. This invisible wall is meant to be one way, but it can sometimes stalk you the other way on PS3. Luckily, I didn't run into that issue in this run. Almost all of the rest of the planets in this run are going to have equally simple objectives. The first half of Phoenix Rescue is just a straight line. After saving the ship by ignoring all of the enemies, you get the coordinates for Koros, which does set your checkpoint because Phoenix Rescue is a different level from the regular Phoenix, so we have to backtrack normally. Here, I go for safer movement, which ideally is only 1/10 of a second slower than the standard movement, but I missed the long jump, so I lost just over a second. Koros is a difficult planet. The starting movement and proxy are very consistent, but the whip jump is a huge run killer, and the camera angle you get immediately after is not always predictable, which can cause you to bleed time by charging into the wall. Luckily, it all went well in this run. Command Center is the second hardest planet after Marcadia, and as such, I take a slightly safer line at the beginning. proxying up the right side instead of going up the middle, which risks bonking on the ship and is generally more precise. The time difference is small enough that this play is easily worth it. I swing the wrench during the proxies so I can double jump. It's much easier to control Ratchet while he's jumping than while he's gliding. Now how did I finish the level here? Well, when you complete the level normally, it ends with you flying away in the Ranger ship. It just so happens that they left a random trigger to enter the ship next to this tower, which we can conveniently reach with 2 proxies, an insta-whip, and 2 Tira flips. They never expected you to enter the Ranger ship without having already completed the level, so we can just fly straight to the Dr. Nefarious fight. The goal of the Nefarious fight is simple: kill him in 1 cycle. If you don't, you have to go a long ways away and finish him off there. Nefarious goes into the second phase when he does certain animations while he's below a certain health threshold. The first opportunity we have to perform the 1 cycle is when he begins to do the sweeping gun attack. So we set up as many turrets as possible to do damage without putting him below the threshold. Then, when the window of opportunity opens, we start doing a technique called Rhino bombing. If you hit an enemy or boss with the Nitro Eruptor and the Rhino V2 through V4 at the same time, the Rhino will do damage on every frame, allowing it to kill the weakened final boss absurdly fast. To our knowledge, this is the fastest damage dealing method in the game. Now, we've saved the most unusual glitch for last. If you shoot the Rhino and immediately unequip it, the bullets from the gun will get warped somewhere. In this case, it seems to be directly above the Biobliterator's head, allowing it to deal damage during this animation where it stiffens up and shoots missiles. This strange glitch does just enough damage that I only have to shoot the Biobliterator with the splitter rifle 15 times, instead of the usual 16, saving about a second. With the splitter rifle, I'm doing a technique called rapid fire. Normally, you can only shoot this gun once every second, but if you quickly press square then press circle, it resets the cooldown, allowing me to shoot it twice as fast. I messed it up twice in this run because I was trying to go too fast. And that's the end of the run, 8:17. Although the run is over 40 seconds ahead of second place, it's still far from perfect. How far from perfect? Let's take a deep dive into where the record can go from here. Starting with the obvious. What if I matched all of my golds in a run? My sum of best segments is an 8:07. So there are at least 10 seconds to be saved from doing that. Some of my golds aren't perfect though. If you watch my Marcadia gold, it looks perfect until the end where I bonk on an enemy, losing about 2 seconds. My command center gold still does the right side proxy, but technically, the perfect run will have the middle proxy. It's also possible to do only 1 wrench swing on the second proxy, letting you do the insta-whip sooner. In total, this command center IL saves about 1 second against my gold. Between the 2 seconds on Marcadia and the 1 second on Command Center, my sum of best segments can go down to an 8:04. Working our way to less likely time saves, it's possible to make a file where you don't need to break this box on Marcadia, which would then allow you to skip the extra death abuse, saving 6 seconds. Joao, the strat finder behind the current ELDF strat, has a file like this on the PS Vita version of the game. It's not known how to make a file like this, so it's unlikely that this time save will be used until more research is done. If we do eventually get this 6-second time save, then our perfect run goes down to a 7:58. There is a glitch on the Dr. Nefarious fight where he just stands and laughs at you. This can happen when you get saved by the Nano Pack during the free fall. Currently, there's no consistent setup, so implementing it would be a toss-up at the end of an already brutally difficult run. I'd estimate it saves about 4 seconds. The next technique that could be used is a setupless box yeets. Instead of dying to reset the position of the box, you just switch away from the suck cannon frame perfectly, and do the box yeet right away. It's possible to use this on Velden to reach the Ranger ship faster, as shown by Pentali, who reaches the Ranger ship in just 9 seconds using the strat, while my best Velden ever takes about 17 seconds to get there. It's an incredibly difficult strategy, and we don't know yet if Quark Warp would still work, but assuming it does, a theoretically perfect run would include it and save an additional 8 seconds. Next, there's Joao's TAS LDF. This completes LDF in about 5.5 seconds. My gold does it in 14.5, minus the 2 we subtracted before, so this strat would save 7 seconds. The only problem is that it's ridiculously hard. You have to frame perfectly stop the box in place, do the box yeet, then frame perfectly charge out of a wrench swing, which includes at least 2 1/60th of a second timings with no good cues. This makes it even harder than the Velden box yeet, saves less time, and it comes right after ELDF, which is currently the biggest choke point in the run. With all of these crazy strategies combined and perfect execution, there is potential for a 739. The 817 is a huge step up from previous records, but there's still a long way to go to get a truly optimized run. Although sub 8 looks like a distant target now, you never know what other time-saving strategies might be lurking in the shadows, and who might come along next with seemingly inhuman consistency at all the tricks we think are hard today.